Hello, everyone. You're listening to Cloud Next, your go-to source for cloud innovation and leaders' insight. Brought to you by Global Dots.
The CISO's role has never been more complex. Balancing broad expectations, tightening regulations, and now the rapid adoption of AI across organizations can feel like walking a tightrope. Our guest today knows that balancing act better than most. Jonathan Jaffe, CISO at Lemonade, the tech company reinventing insurance, has been steering security through hypergrowth, regulation, constant change, and a fast-evolving AI landscape. He's here to share how the CISO role is evolving, what truly builds trust with vendors, where AI fits and doesn't in security teams, and some more personal takes. I'm Ganesh the Awesome, Solutions Architect at Global Dots, where we research innovations every day so you don't have to. As always, we invite you to join the conversation on LinkedIn. Let us know your thoughts. Jonathan, first of all, welcome to the show.
Ganesh, it's a pleasure.
Really happy to have you. Let's jump straight in. You're a CISO. The CISO role has clearly evolved, but from your perspective, what challenges are still the same and what new pressures have emerged that companies should or could prepare for?
There's a lot. And unsurprisingly, it revolves around AI and the introduction of generative AI into companies. If you're a smart company, I think you want to use AI as much as possible throughout the organization. It's the way to stay competitive. But from a security perspective, because the threat landscape hasn't been well defined, we haven't seen what the attacks are going to look like. And now you're giving what amounts to children the controls of a 747 that has autopilot, and they think it'll land itself. And if you're at traffic control, you're just beside yourself in how you're going to make sure this plane lands safely.
Yeah, I definitely, it resonates with me. Just generally speaking, in the role of the CISO, they're always the same. Like the attack vectors obviously come first and then the solutions come afterwards. And there used to be a little bit more time to think about the attack vectors. But as we seem to progress through technology over the decades, that everything happens so quickly that you can't possibly have the tools in the pocket to stop the new thing that's there. So it's a very stressful thing, always on the back foot, it feels like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just today I was thinking about how am I going to deal with the introduction of 15 new tools that non-developers are bringing in, because now they can code and hit the return key after every time AI suggests something with no security controls. The way that we approach it at Lemonade is to keep up with new technologies that try to solve new problems, which invariably means using a lot of security startups and working with design partnerships of companies that need live data to make marketable products. And then from my perspective, we get to test out solutions that are the vanguard solutions that are preventing the vanguard attacks. That's how we do it.
Very pretty cool to be at the vanguard edge, as well as, I imagine, fairly risky. And on the topic of AI, it's quickly become the part of like every security conversation, both as a risk and as a tool to be used from your side. But from your perspective and where Lemonade are, what are security teams getting wrong with AI today? Well, like, where do you see the real practical opportunities to use it inside your security organization?
Yeah, I don't know if I know where teams might be getting it wrong with AI and security, or with AI in general. Perhaps people are focusing on the simplistic things like prompt injection, and they're not really thinking about the low cost of non-technical attackers who now have tools that can amplify their skills so that they become super attackers. I don't know what my peers are doing. I can't criticize what they're doing because I don't know what they're doing. I know my fear is that I just don't know what the attack vectors are going to look like. And without having initial observability, I'm always afraid I'm missing something.
Yeah, I saw a piece on LinkedIn actually just yesterday, which put to bed the idea that you can red team your AI. So it's essentially the mathematics of AI mean that it's impossible to stop people doing prompt injection and various things. It's a mathematical equation that basically says you cannot stop it because there's too many vectors, too many different ways that it could happen. And
Don't send that to me. I don't feel like getting depressed.
it's bad. It's bad. It made for bad reading if you were a CISO. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I think you can you can put things around that. You can try and stop at least X% of prompt injections, or use some sort of AI gateway firewall, something like that. But it's definitely made for gloomy doomy reading. That basically, Open AI admitted themselves basically that, hey, listen, that's not a bug, that's a feature, which in brackets means we can't fix this.
All right.
Um, Interesting from a CISO perspective, because if I was in your boots, I just wouldn't sleep. Knowing that was on my head. How do you cope with that, or what's the process around that to limit that or to survive that?
I often arrive 2 hours before everybody else at the office. Some of that comes from the stress of thinking about there's so much to do. But as I alluded to before, the strategy that we've taken to try and deal with emerging threats is to work with emerging technologies.
Mm.
There's another benefit to that, and that well, there are a couple. One, of course, is just fun to play with new shit. Like it really is, right? And because I'm in Israel, where you get probably the best, certainly a lot of the best technologies developed. Um, it's fun because you see stuff that your peers are not going to adopt for 2 to 4 years. But the other benefits are, in addition to getting solutions that might actually prevent these threats, um, you're helping out startups and people with new ideas build their product better. So by the time the Delta Airlines and the JP Morgans of the world get around to catching up to these threats, which they're always laggards in dealing with, you have had a hand in shaping the quality of hopefully what's a really awesome security tool.
Mm. And a big shout to the Israeli tech community, because having worked alongside those people for the last 8 years, it's very cool to see that drip feed. And you say 2-3 years, sometimes it's 5 years. It's really, really, really bleeding edge stuff that especially a very regulated Europe generally isn't ready for. People in Germany having conversations about things that you sort of make your eyes water. Like, guys, you're never gonna get to the forefront of technology with all that regulation. But
Yeah. I always whenever I hear Europe and regulation, I think there are 3 things you can count on in life, and, death, taxes, and EU regulation.
yeah, 100% sure. Yeah, I saw something again on the internet that Google has a line item now in their main budgeting forecast to pay EU fines. It's 10
Yeah.
billion. They put aside 10 billion a year. Um,
I've always, I thought a fun pet experiment would be to see how much time humanity wastes clicking away cookie banner notifications.
yeah,
I'm sure
right.
it's probably, 100 million hours a year,
Oh
across
yeah,
humanity.
you could build Rome with the amount of time that was spent clicking those things, no doubt about it. Um, I want to come back to what we plan to talk about in this episode. And in our prep talk, you spoke about the importance of board communication and how you bridge the gap between technical risk and business priorities, particularly around the dreaded AI topic, um, both from like the uncertainty and the hype aspect. What do you wish that vendors understood better when supporting you in that process?
Uh, the quality of dashboards. So, in reporting up to management or to a board, you don't need technical details. You need reliable metrics that show how you're doing, and ideally how you're doing against your peers in industry, so that the board can make an educated decision about where to allocate money. And they can do that if they know comparatively what is our risk, um, against other customers, their competitors, or just industry.
Mm. Yeah, I also highly resonate with that, and or that sits with me in a very nice way, because some of the features that I do see in those tools, Particularly when you're looking at kind of CASB tools, you do get that feedback loop sometimes where it says, hey, we've looked at all of the settings in your Okta. Here are the 30 things that you should turn on in Okta, as an example. And then sometimes you get this little side pane that says, here's where you sit against all the other people that are using the platform. And basically the aim of the game is just not to be at the bottom of that
You,
pile. It's
yeah, you just need to be faster than the slowest person in that race away from the bear.
yeah, that's exactly it. There's the old proverb of the bear chasing people in the woods, and then one guy stops to put on his trainers, and the other guy says, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I just need to be faster than you." And then again in our prep talk, I want to come back because we talked about regulations and compliance frameworks generally tightening globally, which sort of ties back into anybody who wants to work in Germany or Europe. And AI is moving faster than the regulation, obviously. So how do you balance the ticking of the boxes with the real world practical resilience? And where do you see either yourself getting it wrong or other companies or anyone getting it wrong?
I think there is a desire to overregulate when you don't understand something, and we see that coming out of the EU. Um, my focus is security, and so I don't first look at regulations to see what I have to do. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes having a framework helps when either you don't know exactly how to start, but regulations are typically a laggard. I am afraid, as I've said, I am afraid that regulations are going to be put into place that actually would prevent us, for example, from using AI to stop attacks. Regulations. I don't remember the proposal right now, but it's something around in the EU about some AI regulation. You can see AI regulation being so broadly described that it would also prevent the use of using good AI in a security solution, and that would be a bad move. Um, this happens in the world of Sarbanes-Oxley, where the auditor will say you have a control, and that control says that you have to have a human review all code before it's submitted. You can see how that's going to interfere with the idea of having code that self-heals and uses AI to remove vulnerabilities. This is something that we're running into right now. So if somebody's going to introduce regulation that essentially prohibits me from using good security tools, that's harm that's done to industry.
Mm. And on that level, where the talking about like those frameworks, and let's say uh, I don't know what the current EU regulatory framework is, but I'm sure we're not too far away from some sort of NIST style framework that encompasses AI. If not this year, very soon. Um, and I feel like with those things, like with ISO audits, like with SOC audits, there is an inherent ticking of the box. Basically, you know the whatever it is, 17 sections with their 20 sub questions. You do everything you need to do to solve that. Um, and I don't think a lot of the time, I mean, I can give a real world example where I was part of an ISO audit once and it was full of red on the screen, like tons of machines that had out of date, no antivirus on there, or they weren't connecting to their antivirus server. And my boss was like, well, you can't show that to the auditor. So he had me filter them out. So I just put, filter the ones that are connecting. Screen goes green. The auditor sees it. Great, green screen. I was like, I immediately lost faith in ISO audits. I was like, these things are a complete waste of time because if I'm doing it, everyone's doing it. I won't say the person or the company because probably there's legal ramifications of that. But like that's the sort of the box ticking episode that I feel like happens. Um, and what's your feeling on that? Like, where do you see the balance in companies or people getting that right and wrong?
I think that we get audited for SOC 2. And while I don't enjoy it, and I do think there's a lot of box ticking that goes with these things, what I found is at least for vendor to vendor relationships, like when I have to bring on a new vendor that's a service we're going to use, it really helps. It helps me confirm that at least some minimum threshold of security is in place. if a third-party auditor just come in, yes, the vendor can game the system and hide those red alerts. You hope that the auditor is a good auditor and knows how to make sure that doesn't happen. But at least a third party is coming in and saying, okay, well, you have to have a higher level of security than what you would have if there was no third party looking at this. It's far from perfect, but it raises the bar across the board for security. Uh, well, I'll comment on ISO versus SOC though. ISO is about, do you have a bureaucratic security program in place, which I find much less valuable than at least something that looks at the actual controls like SOC 2 tries to do. So I don't value an ISO report from a potential partner, somebody we might do business with. I put weight into the SOC 2, but I also know that it can be gamed, but at least it raises things up a bit. So I don't have to do something I can never do anyway, which is I would never go and audit another company. Nobody has a bandwidth, desire, or money to audit all of their partners. So it
Yeah,
has a place. It has a place, but
help
it's not great.
for sure. Nobody has got the time for that. And yeah, I mean, the ISOs are not for technical people. Basically, that's a different people are interested in ISO audits. That's for sure.
No, the
Um,
the ones who work 32 hours a week and take a lot of coffee breaks, usually every at the top of every hour.
you mentioned you get in 2 hours early every day. I meant to ask, is that so you can see if the lights are still on, and then if they're not, that means you've got a 2 hour head start on looking for a new job.
No, but I should think of it that way, though. It's a much better way to go. No, it's just, I have a number of dashboards I review every morning, and those take focus, and then as people come in, you just have to start to deal with OKRs and planning and projects and the things that require interaction with people.
Mm. Makes sense. Um, we'd love for you to take part in our rapid fire questions. So on your marks, get set, go. One tool or app you can't live without?
Well, I like my CSPM product. I have 2, and I'm not gonna name them. I have 2 for, historical reasons. I actually think enterprise browsers are a critical function, and I think anybody who doesn't use it is practicing professional negligence. I just think you're an idiot if you're not using some sort of enterprise browser. And then I do have a couple of favorites. I like this little tool out of Israel called Breeze Security. I really like it.
Brie security, like the cheese brie.
No, like the wind rushing through your hair if you have
Ah,
it.
brie security. Okay, nice. One tool or app you hate?
At the moment, I kinda hate anything that does AI like Claude, Cursor, Windsurf. They're they're making my life really difficult,
Yeah,
as fun as they are.
you're gonna have a lot of hate in your life. I don't see those slowing down, unfortunately. Um, what what keeps you up at night, professionally or unprofessionally?
It's just AI. It's the onslaught of AI tools that lower the barrier to entry to making havoc.
Can you share the worst ever experience of your career?
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. I was doing a job for The Gap 20 something years ago as an independent, consultant, and I was putting together I put together their LDAP directories, and then I think one Friday evening, I just wanted to do an upgrade, and so I backed up the directories, and I was a bit cocky working from home, and I was sipping on some wine. It was, I think, Friday at 9 p.m. There's a command in LDAP. I think it's LDAP to DB, and then so that goes from the LDAP, it creates a database, and then there's DB to LDAP, which is how you upload a database back into a directory server. Um, Stupidly, I started off with a DB to LDAP being a little bit drunk. I didn't know there was a problem because there was success. The database was uploaded, but of course, I'd overwritten an entire directory of all of Gap's employees. So Saturday morning, just before Black Friday, actually, it was a week before. Saturday morning, all Gap stores were unable to use their registers for the entire weekend without going to a backup local system of prior
Uh-huh.
credentials.
That's a good one. I think that might be the most wide impacting and best answer we've ever had to that question. We get some good answers for that, but that one is literally like thousands of people impacted.
Yeah, I think it was 200 and something thousand employees
Wow.
that were
Yeah.
impacted. Yeah.
Well
I don't
done.
know what the lost sales were. They didn't tell me that number before they exited me out of the engagement.
Thanks for sharing. That's brilliant. We're coming to the close of the podcast. Been a pleasure having you on, Jonathan. But before we let you go, we always like to give people the DeLorean question. And that's if you
No,
could
I don't do cocaine.
if you could go I saw something today. Coralogics is having their SKO, and they're creating a film of the SKO, and it had a real close.
Oh, sign me up. I'm sure that's going to be exciting to watch.
It had a zoom up of a line of powder, and it said the Coralogics SKO gets wild, and then it was 2 lines of powder, and as it zoomed out, it was flour, and they were making pizza. But I just thought that's a crazy piece of marketing to put out there. Like, I'm not sure you want your company associated with lines of cocaine. Anyway,
Are they public?
I don't think they're
And,
IPO'd. No.
and they
So
probably won't ever be public now because of that. Great.
I don't know. I saw it and I just thought that's the kind of thing that got me in serious trouble when I did stupid shit like that like 10 years ago. Um, that's a story for another day. But back to letting you go. Before we let you go, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece or more of professional advice, what would it be? Like, what would you say to the younger you?
Professional advice. Stay curious. And if you're not yet curious, become curious, especially with the advent of new technology. Don't rest on what you know.
Very sage words to end on.
Oh, and also sell high.
Another piece of advice that is very easy to say, but was
That's
super difficult.
it's from personal experience, having thought the stock would always go up 20 years ago when I was at a startup. I thought the stock would always go up.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
I feel like we could share a beer over that topic. I once invested pretty much my life savings in a startup and watched it crash. So,
Ouch.
you've definitely got an empathy vote for that one. Pleasure, Jonathan. Nothing more from my
Pleasure
side.
was
I don't know if
mine.
you want to add
Ganesh,
anything
thank
before
you.
we let you go.
No, it was a pleasure.
You've been a great guest. Really, thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for the honor.
That's it for today. Thank you all for listening. If you're ready to rethink your cloud practices and cybersecurity strategy, then the team and I at Global Dots are at your disposal. We've been doing it for over 20 years. It's what we do. And if I don't say so myself, we do it pretty well. So have a word with the experts, don't be shy, and remember that conversations are always for free. I'm Ganesh the Awesome, and this episode was produced and edited by Toma Mulvidson, sound editing and mixed by Bren Russell. Stay tuned for more episodes.